Dorothy, another tax provision of particular concern to a lot of the people in this room is a move to repeal the LIFO inventory valuation. Talk a little bit about where that stands and what is there a policy justification for it, and is there a chance that that's going to happen?
Sure. I think there is a small policy justification, but I think by and large it's a money grab. LIFO repeal would raise about $75 billion over 10 years. It's in the president's budget. It was in the president's budget last year. It's been floating around seriously for about 4 or 5 years. There is the policy justification has to do with international financial standards, and there's a move, a slow move to harmonize U.S. accounting standards with the international standards. International standards don't acknowledge LIFO. So some people will say, look, we've got to repeal LIFO in advance of moving to international standards so we won't have to deal with it. I think that's just really a red herring. I think there's ways that we can have LIFO in the United States and still be harmonized with international standards, but I don't think we need to get into it there. I think to get back to the money grab, Congress, there is a lot of focus on the deficit and the national debt. In fact, the IMF yesterday said that if we don't do anything by 2015, our national debt is going to be 100% of GDP. I think there's growing concern, certainly in Congress and beginning in the administration, that we need to do something with our about our deficit, about our debt. There are pay-go rules in Congress that apply when they want them to, but
what's
basically...
the pay-go rule?
The pay-go rule says that any spending increase or tax cut needs to be offset by a spending increase or a spending cut or a tax increase. So everything should be deficit neutral moving forward. So as a result, when they have a bill in Congress, in fact, this week the House is going to take up a bill that has a bunch of tax incentives like the R&D credit that NAM supports. It's about a $300 billion bill. They're looking for offsets. And again, this is an example where they use the pay-go rules when they want to. I think they're looking for about $50 billion in offsets. But there's a constant pressure to find new tax offsets. A lot of people say that the low-hanging fruit, as they like to say in Washington, were used in the health care bill. In addition to the things that we've discussed up here, there are a lot of smaller tax increases that were included there. Tax increases that were included in the health care bill. But they're constantly on the lookout for offsets. And I think LIFO, $75 billion, is a very attractive target. And it's sort of ironic, the whole debate about LIFO, it's been going on for 4 or 5 years, began with a Republican. Senator Frist offered it, LIFO repeal, as an offset for an energy rebate plan, I think back in 2005. And ever since then, we formed the LIFO Coalition. The wholesalers are the secretary of it, and we have been lobbying in support of LIFO, against LIFO repeal since then, and it's something that we are constantly educating and re-educating members of Congress and their staff how important it is, certainly to a lot of the companies in the room here and a lot of manufacturers, particularly the small and medium-sized ones.
It's interesting, when Dorothy says educating these folks, this is one of those situations where you can practically guarantee you're going to know more about this issue than your member of Congress and many of their staff. So you shouldn't be afraid to reach out and have those conversations. I know it can be intimidating to talk to elected officials or staff about specific policy issues, but this is one of those where they're not going to know what you're talking about, and you're going to have to educate them. Jim?
Education is exactly the right word. Dorothy's exactly right. She's exactly right. This toothpaste first came out of the tube about 5 or 6 years ago with Senator Frist. It was being shopped as a pay-for I've forgotten what it was that it was paying for. Perhaps you recall.
I think it's a gas tax increase.
I think it might have.
Or gas rebate.
It may well have been. That's right.
$4 gas,
but
everybody's going to get $100.
Here's the problem. There was no educational process on that whole proposal when the toothpaste first came out of the tube. That's one of my favorite metaphors. You know that? And we're going to spend the rest of our careers trying to stuff that toothpaste back into the tube, as difficult as that obviously is to do. Because it is, to some extent, considered low-hanging fruit. I mean, it was on the short list of pay-fors for the health care bill. It's one of the pieces of low-hanging fruit that, frankly, didn't find its way in there. This is one on which you're going to have to stay engaged. You need to be involved on this. If you're on LIFO and you like being on LIFO, you need to be alert on this, because this is going to be floated every time a pay-for is needed for anything, no matter how unconnected it is to this particular issue. I mean, that's just the reality.
I want to go to Kyle in a second, but one of our members asked me to that point, what are the chances that LIFO is going to be repealed this session? I mean, how serious do we need to be about this? Is it a 20% chance? Is it an 80% chance? And, my thought process there was, well, if you don't say anything, the chances go up. But if you're the squeaky wheel, the chances go towards that 20 to 0%. Kyle.
And that's exactly right. We did a survey of the NEMA members, and about 36% of the NEMA manufacturers use LIFO. And it's critical for them to have met with the congressmen, with their senators, to explain it, to work really at the local level, work with the district office, contact them, have them come over, meet with you, explain what the consequences could be for your company, your competitiveness, your employment situation if LIFO was repealed. So they understand that LIFO cannot be on a pay-for list.